Welcome to week 128 of Misha Dianne watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We finished episode 619, which originally aired Monday, January 5th, 1987, and was originally supposed to air on a Friday. As one of the lines of dialogue indicates, it's just about to be a weekend. Julia tells Cruz that she has a client that needs a PI, and Cruz declines the job. I feel like this may be the new direction for Cruz. He might become a PI. I think Julia's going to end up talking him into it eventually. He agrees to meet the client, Mr. Swan, I think it was, but then, says he can't help. I think Julia will talk him into it.
Yeah, well, he's obviously been feeling a bit stifled on the police force, and he was an independent operator when we first met him.
Mm-hmm.
And way back, he and Eden had that little adventure around the time of the Amanda Lockridge, so I can definitely see him taking the private detective route.
Julia and Cruz run into Gus at the Orient Express. Gus had seen Cruz earlier. Gus was angry with Alice because she had circled some job postings for him in the newspaper. This leads me to believe that Gus is clearly nuts. He was so angry with her for helping him by circling some jobs that he might want to interview for. So he's quite a wacko, really. Anyway, he shows up at Johnny's looking for work. That's where he encounters Cruz earlier in the day, and Cruz suggests a temp agency. And that temp agency gets him a job for one day bussing tables at the Orient Express. And that's where Cruz later runs into him, and Gus thanks him for the tip. Now, it's made very clear from the get-go that it's a one-day gig only to fill in. So, there's no expectation that Gus will stay on for more than one day. Now, Mason finds the remains of Julia's party in his office, and his secretary reports that the janitor saw a looker leave here on New Year's Eve. So Mason calls Julia in and offers to make it up for her tonight. And in the evening, he tricks her into coming over, and they make love under the portrait of George Washington. So this line here, New Year's Eve, makes me think it's several days after New Year's Eve, because it's clearly not January 1st. In fact, Mason's back at work. You'd think that would be a day off. And also, when Cruz runs into Eden at the Orient Express, he says, "Oh, I saw you at that party a few days ago." So, that night at the party, something like that. So it implies. So even though it's a Friday, maybe it's a week later. Eden tells Cruz that she made a New Year's resolution that day. She said, "No matter what I say or do, I'll never stop hoping." And then Cruz says that he made a resolution that he would never stop believing in his dreams. So Eden says, maybe we'll both make them come true. I don't know why they're actually apart. They clearly both want to be together. Alice, Carolyn, and Lionel dine at the Orient Express. So, of course, Gus ends up bussing their table and doesn't seem to be embarrassed about it at all, but he's a little annoyed by, I think, Alice or Carolyn tries talking to him to see how things are going. So Lionel tries to get Carolyn once again to tell Alice that she's her mother, and Lionel invites Carolyn on a weekend cruise. So that is that. Haley tells Eden that she thinks Ted just took the job at the Abernathy stable to annoy Cece. Eden says that all of Cece's kids jump through various hoops to please Cece, so whatever Ted's doing, she should just ignore it. And Haley agrees. So this is maybe the end of Haley badgering Ted about things. And I think because we have some new storyline potentially introduced by this new character who's probably being paid by one of the people who left a couple of weeks ago. Ted meets his new boss, Jake Morton, who is the, I think he said groom at the Abernathy stables. Ted is, of course, starting at the lowest possible rung, the stable hand. Jake Morton immediately takes a dislike to Ted. He thinks Ted will be promoted above him within a week just because of who he is. But Ted insists that he wants to work his way up from the bottom. And Jake says that was his plan, and he's been there for years, and he's only made it to groom. He hasn't been allowed to do any horse training or breeding or any of that stuff yet.
Yeah, Jake obviously has a little bit of a chip on his shoulders, as do so many of the characters in this show.
He clearly is not born at the same level of society as the Capwells, and he seems to have some disdain for Ted because of it. He steals some of his lunch, and obviously treats him quite lowly, but then again, he is the lowliest person on the roster. So when Haley brings Ted's lunch, Jake likes her a lot more than he likes Ted. I think early on in the conversation he realizes that she's not, from money, that they're at the same level, and I think they immediately, have something in common there. Haley plans a romantic evening, but when Ted gets home, he is so tired that he falls asleep immediately. So I think, if his job is going to be the same every day, he's going to have a long day. He got up early, he came home late, he's exhausted. Could be a very difficult 5 years or whatever that Ted set himself up for. I just don't see that lasting from the standpoint of, soap opera plotting. I feel like Ted's either going to bail or something else is going to happen. Gus is angry. That's a shocker when Eden tells him, there's no more work for you tomorrow. As I said, it was only for a day, and of course he immediately assumes it's because he was in jail, and he punches a beam and injures his hand. Later, Eden and Mark, not Mark McCormick, Mark the maitre d', are robbed by a masked assailant. The investigating officer immediately suspects Gus when he asks about all the various staff and maybe any people who've recently been let go. Cruz is there at that point and tells him not to jump to conclusions, but he's very annoyed that Cruz, who's not even on the police force, is telling him how to conduct his investigation, and he goes to arrest Gus. And, of course, that freaks out Alice, as you might expect.
Pretty much had enough of Gus already.
Yeah, he's not doing anything to endear himself to anyone. Even Lionel, who's the most easygoing person, is, getting a lot of flack from him, and maybe he's going to end up losing his temper with Gus at some point. And that's it for this Friday episode that aired on a Monday. And we haven't seen Kelly for a while, but Robin Wright's back. I wonder if maybe she didn't come back quite that early, and they just filmed one scene with her and inserted into an episode, before Christmas, but we actually won't see her for a few days. I think they probably shot about 2 weeks or so in advance, so I don't think it's going to be that much of a delay. But yeah, I haven't seen Jeffrey in a while either, but now we've got Jake introduced. So I guess Jeffrey and Jake took over the payroll of the two characters who left, who we will bring up when they leave the credits, but so far they're still in the credits. We went to the movie Honey Don't yesterday, and during the previews, Bernard White was interviewed for a new movie that he is in called Shook. And Bernard White, of course, we know as Angel Ramirez from Santa Barbara. So anyway, I don't know if he's Canadian. I think he's Sri Lankan. But the film was shot in Toronto, and the other star that was interviewed is Canadian, from what I could tell. So anyway, if we end up seeing it, we'll let you know how it is, recommended or not. We'll be back after we watch episode 620. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome.
Hello.
I think it's going to be a short one today. Only two things happened in episode 620 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, January 6th, 1987. Since the last recording, we've seen a couple more episodes of Falcon Crest, and Nick Hartley's been in all of them. Mm-hmm. In Santa Barbara on January, what would it be, the 5th, the intention, Ted wakes up. It's still late night, so he hasn't slept the whole night. He wakes up, and Haley and Ted have a picnic in the atrium, I think it was. So they had a nice evening, and we'll see how grueling Ted's schedule is in the coming days.
I have a feeling that his boss is going to work him really hard because he has some resentment for Ted.
Mm-hmm. Now it's interesting. I was just putting together the previous release, week 127, and one line Ted says that he knows the lead groom at the Abernathy stables, but it didn't seem like he knew Jake when we saw him. So I don't know if that's an error or if there are other people working there. Also, just scheduling thing. When I released episode 126, I accidentally put it to immediate release on August 6th and then quickly changed it to scheduled release on August 30th. But today's September 1st, and I saw no views on it, even though it has come out. So I don't know what people who are subscribed actually see when that happens. It seems like maybe a weird glitch in the YouTube thing where if you accidentally release something, you can't properly schedule it again after the fact. Anyway, while we're on that subject, with YouTube's algorithms, I find that if I just go on vacation, the stuff that I'm watching regularly suddenly drops down in my feed. So I think it's best if you subscribe. I had a message on YouTube, sorry, on Facebook, that someone had lost track of us and was happy to find us again after I posted one of the recent episodes. So maybe hit the subscribe button just to make sure that whatever YouTube algorithms there are, they at least know you're trying to be subscribed, and we will try to stick with this schedule of every 2 weeks if we can. And maybe I'll just put an ad or something on the alternate weeks so that YouTube thinks we're still alive, because I think YouTube doesn't think 2 weeks is often enough. So,
are you going to repost the
no,
possibly missing one?
Because I posted it to Facebook with the old link, so I can't just delete it after I just posted it. So you'll have to track down week 126 if it's sort of not showing up, and then 127 I have scheduled for September 13th. So. And this is week 128. So that's it for Ted and Haley. And the other story is Gus, and everyone else in the cast is involved in that storyline. Gus is arrested and taken in for booking. Lionel, Carolyn, and Julia and Alice arrive at the police station to help him. Julia turns out to be his attorney. Mason says, "Oh yeah, you have to do that because you're the one who sponsored his parole. So it would look bad if you didn't defend him." So Mason sets up a vocal lineup of Gus and 4 other voices, one of which is Paul Whitney. Is that his name? Our cop. He's played by Stoney Jackson, and plans to have Eden listen to it and identify the robber. Well, Cruz cautions her not to jump to conclusions. Eden identifies Gus's voice as that of the hold-up man. And, of course, Julia or Cruz says, "Oh, yeah, she identified the voice of a guy she worked with all day." That's, Julia says this is not going to hold up in court. Mm-hmm. Alice tells Eden she is wrong. And then Cruz tells Eden that he thinks Gus is innocent. So I think maybe this is less about Gus, but maybe more about driving wedges between various people, Eden and Cruz, Mason and Julia, and Lionel and Carolyn also, because Lionel says at the end of the day, I think you think Gus did it, and you'd be happy if he went back to prison. So there's three wedges in relationships just from this incident.
I'd almost be happiest if it was a wedge issue, because that would certainly make the way for other storylines and different dynamics. Because the focus on Gus, he's so unrelentingly negative and self-sabotaging. It's actually a bit of a downer just having the story centered around him.
I'm like, at one point weeks ago, I would thought, oh, maybe Gus and Carolyn as a potential romance could restart, but I don't see that happening now. So, we'll see if Gus chills out. I mean, Michael's brother, what's his name, Brian? He was pretty negative on everything when we first saw him, but he's slowly coming around to things. So we'll see how Gus integrates into the Santa Barbara cast. And that's it. That was the main storyline, was all the stuff about, Mason and Julia did a lot of back and forth, and a lot of extras as police officers were involved. And then the voice guy was another cop that we'd never seen. So, and then there were so many different things happening in the police station in different rooms. Like, I had trouble figuring out which room things were happening in. Some were in Mason's office, some were in the atrium, but I think there was an interrogation room, and I think maybe at least one other room that showed up. So I just started putting in my summary interior police station room, another room, a different room. So that's it. We'll see how this progresses Wednesday. I don't know how quickly Gus's hearing will be, but it'll be interesting to see Mason and Julia go against each other in court, which we haven't had for a while.
Especially since they're also sleeping together, so that's double the fun.
Yeah, we'll see if they do a better job of it than Belle and EJ on Days of Our Lives of late. All right, we will see you after we watch episode 621 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to episode 621 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We watched the 621st episode of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, January 7th, 1987. Haley and Ted have reservations at 5 p.m., but Jake sends Ted off to Ojai to deliver a horse at 4:30 and has taken off his shirt by the time Haley arrives to pick up Ted. And he puts Haley up on a saddle so he can show her a few things. Ted fobs the job off on someone else and returns just as Haley is checking out Jake's polo mallet. Ted is annoyed at Jake's attention to Haley. Haley is amused that Ted is jealous.
And to add insult to injury, we learned that the person who was supposed to receive the horse is known to be very flirtatious.
Yes, Ted is annoyed that he was sent off by Jake to a potentially embarrassing situation. So Ted, actually, when Jake leaves, Ted picks up the saddle that's on a little sawhorse and throws it to the ground. Sophia shows Jeffrey the study, and he locks himself in and searches the cabinets and drawers. He looks at a photo of Mason and says, "I can't wait to wipe that smug look from your face." That's not his accent at all. But he has an accent. That was what I was attempting to get across. So yes, he seems to have something maybe against Mason in particular of the Capwell clan. Cece is suspicious when the study door is locked, and he seems to be suspicious of Jeffrey for the rest of the episode. Sophia comes in and offers Jeffrey the job as one of their new chauffeurs. So they specifically say they have several chauffeurs and one is out or something. Before Cece can say anything, Jeffrey takes the job. And Cece has a bit of an annoyed look on his face and tells Sophia that he's a bit annoyed that Jeffrey is sticking around and is not heading back east. So I think Jeffrey and his mysterious woman friend have something in store for the Capwells.
But which ones? Or all of them, perhaps?
Now the Capwells, of course, have their hands full with the Kelly Capwell kidnapping, so I wonder if Jeffrey will stumble into it and ruin it, or stumble into it and make himself a second hero by saving Kelly from something that goes wrong, or if that storyline will not intersect. I have no memory. I remember there was one semester of university where my roommate decided to save money we wouldn't have cable. and NBC. Unfortunately, in Canada, you have to have cable to watch that. Luckily, King 5 in Seattle was broadcasting on Channel 6 in Vancouver, and you can get that at the very low end of the FM band. So there may have been 4 months where I only heard Santa Barbara on audio. And I feel like it might have been, September after a summer that this happened. But yes, I wasn't able to watch Santa Barbara or Doctor Who for several months. Gina tries to fill in for Cece at a stockholders meeting, and Cece grabs the phone from her and tells her under no circumstances does she have the skills to chair a stockholders meeting. And she says, well, you're just a figurehead, aren't you? His voice is still a bit raspy, and Gina did tell the person on the other end of the phone Cece was on his deathbed, but looks like he's recovered a bit. In fact, he says he's going to New York, and not with her. Gina then immediately suspects that Sophia is sneaking off to New York with Cece. So she hires a private detective to follow Sophia everywhere and tells Sophia that. Next time we see Sophia, she is talking to a woman who is wearing the identical dress to her and has been made up to look like a double with the same glasses and hair. And her name is Margie. And she tells Margie, just wander around town while the PI follows you. Pretend you're shopping, have lunch, whatever. Then she phones Cece and tells him to rush back from the airport. And when Cece arrives, Sophia reveals that before he leaves, they are going to make love.
Seemed like a lot of work just to hang out at home.
Yeah, especially since Gina lives there. Like, why wouldn't they meet at a third location?
Yeah, this would have been the opportunity for a romantic retreat.
Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to Cece and Sophia, Keith has flowers delivered to Gina. He has to bribe a bellboy at the Capwell Hotel because he says we're not allowed to deliver things outside of the hotel. And they're delivered to the Capwell house, which, anyone could see. Anyway, there's a note with the flowers to meet him at the Capwell Presidential Suite. And she wonders where he got the money for that. At the hotel, he tries to get amorous with her, but she thinks he's been paid off by Cece and looks for the cameras. Keith tells Gina that she should hitch her wagon to him, or however that works, whatever that phrase is, because in 48 hours, he's going to take over Capwell Enterprises. So I don't know where that came from. There was no indication of that before today.
No.
But we'll see what Keith has planned. Has he been secretly getting Cece to sign things without his knowledge, or has he gotten word of some takeover or merger and managed to purchase stock in some other company that's gonna see him rise up? I don't know, but it's only going to be 48 hours, so we should know by Friday, I hope.
Might even be a cliffhanger. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Although they are one day off, so it'll be really a Thursday episode happening on Friday. Brian and Jane try to get Alice to come for an ice cream with them, but she's already annoyed that she's found them together yet again and knows that they're getting closer. She runs off, and Brian suggests they should avoid acting on their feelings for Alice's sake, which makes Jane kind of forlornly look at him. Alice finds Lionel in the garden, and he tells her that Minx is no longer able to tend the garden herself, so he has taken over that task. So I'm wondering if they are thinking that Dame Judith Anderson is not capable of handling the role of Minx for very much longer, and maybe they're laying the groundwork for Minx to pass away?
Or a recast, maybe?
Well, that wouldn't make sense with she's no longer able to tend the garden.
No, I guess, unless she was ill and had to get plastic surgery, but that still doesn't really explain it, does it?
That doesn't make sense. Alice says that Carolyn keeps telling her to expect the worst regarding Gus's case. She says, and he won't get any justice because he's black. So all of Gus's lessons have sunk in to Alice, and she's happily regurgitating Gus's many potentially realistic but also somewhat paranoid fears, I think. Lionel tries to reassure her that Julia will do her best to defend Gus. I hope that doesn't drag on too long. it's not really that exciting, especially with Gus being Gus all over the place. Jane enters the living room to find a strange man there, and as she calls security, the man, after playing with her for a while, reveals to her that his name is Warren Lockridge. It's exciting to see Warren back in town. Warren goes into the garden, and Lionel is happy and surprised because he was expecting him in about 2 or 3 weeks, and he said he was let out of his program a bit early. That would be the anti-gambling program, I believe.
Now, Warren is looking a little bit different because they've done a recast.
Got blonde hair.
Still has blonde hair, but obviously not quite the same as he was when he left.
Warren meets Alice, and I immediately thought, hey, with Jane and Brian hooking up, maybe Alice and Warren is a potential couple. He meets Alice and tells Lionel that he's a bit shocked to be greeted by a house full of strangers. Now, in this episode, he only meets Alice and Jane. He actually hasn't met Carolyn yet. I don't know how much Lionel has previously told him about Carolyn, but I don't know if he's really been told too much about Jane and Alice. Is Pearl still living there? No, Pearl's not living there. Pearl's living in his own place.
I related to this.
Brian living there?
I feel like Brian's around a lot if he's not living there. But I would be pretty freaked out if I came home and, suddenly there's a whole bunch of people in my childhood home.
Yeah, several times it kind of implies that Lionel somehow got a new family while he was gone. Jane apologizes for not recognizing Warren from the photos that Lionel had showed her. And Jane says, I assume you're staying. And Warren says, of course I'm staying. So many changes. And Jane says, the biggest change is being Alice and me. We're not so bad once you get to know us. And Warren says, I'm not so bad either. I'm thinking a Warren and Jane combination. Maybe the writers don't know who's going to be paired up with whom, and they'll just try and throw all these youngsters into a bucket and see who comes out as a couple.
Well, it always seemed to me with the first incarnation of Warren that they never really quite knew what to do with him. So maybe they'll find more of a purpose for this version of him. They seem to throwing out a lot of possibilities.
Jane did mention, didn't he used to own a newspaper? But he said that it went defunct. So I don't remember if that happened on screen or just happened while he was out of town.
I assumed it was his gambling habit had maybe sunk the paper.
Oh, right. He probably, tanked the whatever money was there. That's true. And that is it for the story of this Wednesday episode. We had a full cast credits today. No one has been removed, even the 2 people who are off the show. And there have been 2 additions. Warren Lockridge, number 2, is played by Scott Jenkins. And, of course, our new beloved stable guy, Jake Morton, is played by Rick Edwards. So, clearly, both of them will be sticking around for a while.
I do not remember seeing either of those actors at the reunion, however.
No, I don't think so. Interesting. Were any Warrens there?
There was the first Warren.
Oh, that's right. He's the first one we got the autograph from.
Looking very much the way he did.
Looking identical, which was pretty amazing. And still looking a bit like Nick Coster, which is also kind of cool.
Very nice fellow.
We will be back after we watch episode 622 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to episode 622 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We've watched episode 622 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, January 8th, 1987. Warren meets Caroline. He calls her Augusta's replacement and says he's lost his home. Lionel tries to calm him down a bit, but he asks Lionel if all these changes are temporary. And Lionel reveals that he cares a lot for Caroline. Gus tells Caroline she must be happy this whole thing's worked out for her. And then Alice overhears Caroline saying something negative about Gus and promptly insists she's moving into Gus's place. She encounters Cruz there. And Cruz is actually inside searching the place when Alice comes in, interestingly. And Cruz tells her that neighborhood is too dangerous for her to live there alone. But she is adamant. Gus tells Carolyn to try to talk Alice out of it. Gus is back in prison at this point. A man breaks into Gus's room and hides a money bag from the Orient Express in a drawer. Presumably this is the thief, and he's seen that someone has been arrested for his crime and figures this is a perfect way to, keep suspicion away from him and on Gus. But I guess it means he's not planning to do any more robberies. It was a one-off.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about this because it seems like if he uses the money to implicate Gus, then he doesn't have the money.
I think the bag is empty.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes more sense.
Alice tells Gus she's moving into his place, and he does try to talk her out of it, but he says, go back to the Lockridges, but she won't have it. Back home, Alice finds Carolyn packing up her things for her, but she insists that she is staying. And as they struggle over packing and unpacking, Carolyn and Alice discover the money bag in the drawer. And Carolyn wants to go to the police with it, but Alice insists they destroy it. So I don't know why Carolyn is not willing to, go along with Alice on this one. Mm-hmm. She sounds like she really wants Gus in prison. But I'm wondering how thorough Cruz's search was. I'm wondering if Cruz can confirm that place was empty when he searched that drawer, and that will be evidence that the money bag has been planted. So Alice is actually potentially doing the wrong thing. Mason and Julia argue about whether or not Gus is innocent. Mason suggests they try again for a baby tonight, and she storms out over his insistence that Gus is guilty. Julia is annoyed that Mason is helping Victoria settle into her apartment. Victoria notes to Mason that Julia seemed upset, but Mason says, oh, no, we're just friends. He shows up later with a pile of movies on tape, since Julia blew him off, and they settle in to watch movies. And as they get cozy on the couch, Victoria smiles. So I see that Victoria's been given the go-ahead by Mason by saying he's not interested in Julia. And so I feel like
that's fair.
This may be a stretch of Mason and Victoria in this triangle. Cruz asks Eden to listen to a tape with 4 voices. And when she identifies one as Gus, Cruz reveals that none of them are Gus.
Ooh.
And Eden starts to second guess her positive identification of Gus, which she had earlier told Cruz she was 99% sure of. We'll see if this, makes the difference before the judge, and Julia will manage to get Gus off, much to Mason's consternation. Julia welcomes Warren back and notes that he and Lionel already seem to have had a fight. She tells Lionel that she had a fight with Mason, and she's grateful because she sees that she was becoming more involved with Mason than she had intended to be. So this also makes me think there's going to be a bit of a stretch of Victoria and Mason as Julia focuses on the trial. Will they get together, though, to try again for the baby, even though she's angry with him? Or is she already pregnant and it won't make a difference?
Interesting.
That's what I'm thinking, because if there's a stretch of Victoria with Mason, Mason might not want to continue on seeing Julia, and Julia being angry with Mason might not want to continue on seeing him. So I feel like maybe she's already pregnant, and that is not relevant. And we had another list of full cast credits just one day later, and it was all the same actors as last time in the main credits, with the additional day player of Thief played by Sam Scarber. I imagine we'll be seeing Sam Scarber once or twice more, as Cruz presumably will figure out that Gus is not the real thief. And that's it for this Thursday episode. We'll be back after we watch episode 623. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Is he brain dead or something?
Earl, please, just leave. Come on, leave.
First you're gonna tell me what's with Rip Van Capwell.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 623 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, January 9th, 1987. Pearl finds Mason on Victoria's couch. He goes off on Victoria for throwing over Cruz for a bigger wallet, which I find odd since I think he would be happy that she was no longer interested in Cruz.
Yes, Pearl is very much inserting himself into things that are none of his business at all in this episode.
Eden tells Cruz she's happy she was wrong about Gus. Cruz gives Julia the good news that Eden had failed to re-identify Gus in his voice comparison test. And Julia tells Mason, who immediately says he's got enough evidence to bring Gus, or to against Gus. He's got enough evidence against Gus without the voice identification, and then he brings out the Orient Express money bag that was found in Gus's apartment. So it looks like either Carolyn or Alice or both decided to turn it into the police after all. Eden comes to Mason's office to explain her change of testimony, and Mason tells her to tell Cruz that he's going to convict Gus anyway. Cruz asks Eden to go through the credit card receipts with him to try to find another suspect, and the bartender recalls a well-dressed black man with a flashy ring. Eden doesn't remember him, and she leaves when Jeffrey arrives to pick her up, leaving Cruz alone to go through the credit card receipts. I feel like they may find the guy, because if he was flashy, he was probably using a credit card. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and given that there's not a lot of black characters on this show, or actually in Santa Barbara for that matter, will stand out.
I remember that character actually in the episode of the robbery that earlier on was sitting at a table near the bar. So that's presumably the same actor that we saw breaking into Gus's room to plant the evidence. Jeffrey plays a song on the piano that Sophia says she doesn't quite recognize, and he says it's his own interpretation of a song that was the favorite of someone he cared for a great deal. The person is at rest, and the people she left behind don't even know she's gone. So, some more to the Jeffrey mystery being revealed here. Does Sophia actually recognize the song? Is it perhaps someone that Sophia knew at some point? Is that how it's related? Because Jeffrey definitely seems to be targeting the Capwell specifically. Jeffrey leaves to pick up Gina from her shopping trip. Gina does not actually appear in this episode, but the episode kind of surrounds her with Jeffrey's various trips. But before picking her up, he actually makes a detour and breaks into or sneaks into Mason's office and searches it. And in Mason's desk, he finds a picture of Pamela, which is inscribed, "To my beloved son, even though I can't be with you, I'll always love you, Pamela." And I don't know what actress was used to portray the still photo of Pamela. I will try to research that. If anyone knows, Santa Barbara Online will have that information. But we'll let you know next time if we find some info. Jeffrey says, "So you are human after all." Another bad Jeffrey impression. I may have to stop doing that. "You're full of secrets, Mason. I'm going to learn every last one." So I feel like not just the Capwells, but specifically Mason is being targeted by Jeffrey, because it's the second time he's called out Mason specifically, and we previously saw him asking a lot about Mason. After Jeffrey brings Gina home, he tells Sophia that it seems like Mr. Capwell married the wrong woman. Something to do with your daughter, I believe. And Sophia says, I don't think we should discuss it. So Jeffrey has overheard somehow that something about Kelly has led to Cece marrying Gina, even though clearly he doesn't want to be married to her. So this just reiterates our previous statements that the Capwells chat far too frequently around the house about things that are secrets. In Switzerland, we get to see Robin Wright again for the second time since her return. Kelly reads a letter from Sophia telling her the nightmare will end soon. Kelly phones Sophia and asks her to have Pearl call, which I was a bit surprised with, because when she left, I feel like she wasn't really thinking that much about Pearl. But Pearl is excited to hear the news and tries to peek at the phone number as Sophia is dialing it. And Kelly is very excited to be talking to Pearl. She tells him all about the sketches she's been doing. And he says he's got some big plans for them to get together when she gets back. And Kelly says, it's a date.
Wow.
So I feel like Nick Hartley is out of her head, but Pearl is in her head. I think maybe as a potential love interest, not just as a friend. Which kind of surprises me the way, she kind of was lackluster about that on her way out the door. So maybe she's had some time to think. I don't know, though, if Pearl's going to be the love of her life.
Maybe it's more of a distance makes the heart grow fonder sort of situation.
Well, definitely Nick's, even though Nick's mentioned, the actor's never coming back. So if not Pearl, who?
Well, there's lots of other men out there. We just don't know about them yet.
Or maybe we do.
Or maybe we do.
Pearl gets the idea that Sophia has some sort of plan to bring Kelly home and gets kind of angry when she says they don't want him to help because he wants to be 100% involved in this bringing Kelly home plan that he just vaguely feels exists, but he knows nothing about. So, Pearl tells Julia how much he misses Kelly and says he loves her. I don't think Pearl will turn into another Dylan, but I feel like he may turn into another Nick. At the Orient Express, Julia sees Victoria enter the bar, and this entire episode, Julia's pretty annoyed at the whole Victoria thing, especially with Mason spending so much time with her. Mason is annoyed that Victoria arrives because she's not at home, and of course the doctor has prescribed, minimal activity for her, which I think Mason is interpreting almost as bed rest. She tells him she can't stay in bed for 8 months, but then he does manage to convince her to go back home, which seems excessive since she's out now and I just have dinner there. He wants to drive her even, but she says, no, I'm perfectly capable of taking a cab home. On the way out, she runs into Cruz. Julia goes to Mason and lets him have it about this whole thing that she's built up in her head about Mason and Victoria. He, of course, thinks she's yelling at him about the Jackson case, but not realizing it's about Victoria. And Julia says, one day when you find yourself all alone, you're going to know what I was talking about. So we will see if that really comes to fruition. Piano furnished by Schaefer and Sons. That's it for the episode, and that was the only thing in the credits worth noting. Let's get this Kelly coming home plan in action, because I'm sure Robin Wright doesn't want to just be in scenes on the phone all the time. So maybe next week things will come into action. But we're still in January, and the sweeps don't start till February, so I kind of hope they don't drag it out till February.
I do think there could be a lot that goes wrong with this kidnapping plan, though, and I feel like there's going to be perhaps a lot more adventures, potentially, that revolve around that, even before she gets back to Santa Barbara.
So that may be something that goes wrong and takes a few weeks, and then come February sweeps, the big the big culmination in the Kelly plan happens. Can't see how it could be as exciting as Kirk Cranston throwing Eden into a shark tank, but we'll see what can go wrong with this plan. And of course, I think it's been 48 hours. Keith said he was going to take over Capwell Industries, so maybe Monday we'll find out what he was talking about there.
Yeah.
So, we look forward to seeing you again when we return for week 129 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
What do you think you're doing getting on a plane in your condition?
Nothing wrong with my condition. Once I got you to stop hovering over me like some demented candystriper, I got a good night's sleep and I feel fine.